Good morning, all. The Postgraduate Department of Mathematics, St. Aloysius College, Edathwa, continues its triumphant journey since 1980. The department holds victorious achievements such as UG and PG ranks in the years 2015, 2018, 2020, and 2021. Not only in academic performances, but also in co-curricular activities in the intercollegiate level. It has organized many national and international webinars. To recollect the biography and contributions of great mathematicians, the department began a year-long lecture series named as DOMSAT International Lecture Series. And we are proud to announce that it is our fifth DOMSAT lecture series, and it is on the topic Graphs and Interconnection Network. Before starting the program, for the kind information, there will be a discussion session after the lecture. Participants are requested to either unmute the audio or type in the chat box the questions for the resource person to answer. Feedback link will be provided in the chat box towards the end of the program. Participants are requested to fill the feedback form to receive their certificates. Now, let us begin our program. A day without prayer is a day without blessing. Let's evoke God's blessings with a prayer song. I welcome Dina Siskaria, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics, our association president and coordinator of the program for the welcome speech.
Good morning, everyone. Respected Vice Principal and Head of the Department, Professor Kuchresyama Joseph. Guest of the day, Dr. Manju K. Menon, my colleagues, and our dear students. It is rightly said that small cheer and a great welcome makes a merry feast. It is a proud moment for the Department of Mathematics to be hosting yet another webinar the fifth one in the year-long lecture series. The valuable guidance of Professor Kuchresiyama Joseph, the head of the department and our college vice principal, is our department's lifeblood. I welcome our dear teacher to the program. I am very proud to introduce the resource person of today's lecture series, Dr. Manju K. Menon. Dr. Manju K. Menon is Assistant Professor in the Department of Mathematics, St. Paul's College, Kalamashiri. She completed her PhD in graph theory under the guidance of Professor A. Vijay Kumar in 2010. She has produced prolific works in this field of inquiry. She has 10 publications to her credit and successfully completed a minor research project funded by UGC. She is also a resource person in many national and international seminars, including the 3rd Indo-Taiwan International Conference on Discrete Mathematics held at Taiwan in 2013. She is a research guide in mathematics in Maharajas College, affiliated to Mahatma Gandhi University. With much love and respect, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Manju K. Menon to DOMSAC International Lecture Series. DOMSAC Lecture Series 2020-21 is the brainchild of Dr. Indulal G. His dedication, hard work, and perseverance are the reasons behind the successful organizing of this venture. I welcome you, sir. I invite all my dear colleagues to the program. Their suggestions were valuable for this event's conduct. The participants who are attending the session today is quiet and enthusiastic audience. The time you spare to participate in the session is an encouragement for us to organize more such ventures. Welcome all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I invite Dr. Indulal G., Associate Professor and a well-known research guide, for giving us a brief biography of the great British mathematician, philosopher, and economist, Frank Plumpton Ramsey.
ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട വൈസ് പ്രിൻസിപ്പലും മാത്തമാറ്റിക്സ് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിന്റെ ചോദ്യമായ ശ്രീമതി കുച്ചിശ്രീസിയമ്മ ജോസഫ് ടീച്ചർ, ഇന്നത്തെ ഗസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ഓണർ ഡോക്ടർ മഞ്ജു കെ മേനോൻ, പ്രിയ സഹപ്രവർത്തകരെ, പ്രിയ വിദ്യാർത്ഥിനികളെ, മരണത്തിന് ശേഷവും പ്രതിഭയോ പേരോ പെരുമയോ നശിച്ചു പോകാത്ത ആളുകളെ പറ്റി മലയാളത്തിന്റെ പ്രിയ കവി വൈലോപ്പിള്ളി ശ്രീധരമേനോൻ കന്നിക്കൊയ്ത്ത് എന്ന കവിതയിൽ ഹാ വിജിഗീഷു മൃത്യുവിൻ നാമോ ജീവിതത്തിൻ കൊടിപ്പടം താഴ്ത്തുവാൻ എന്ന് പരാമർശിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നു. ജീവിതം കൊണ്ട് നേടിയ നേട്ടങ്ങളെയും പ്രശസ്തിയെയും പേരിനെയും പെരുമയെയും ഒന്നും മരണത്തിന് കീഴ്പ്പെടുത്താനാവില്ല എന്ന് തെളിയിക്കുന്ന ധാരാളം ഗണിതജ്ഞരെ ഈ ഒരു ലെക്ചർ സീരീസിലൂടെ നാം പരിചയപ്പെടുകയുണ്ടായി. ചുരുങ്ങിയ കാലം മാത്രം ജീവിക്കുകയും എന്നാൽ ഗണിതത്തിന്റെ അപാര ലോകത്തിലേക്ക് ധാരാളം വാതായനങ്ങൾ തുറക്കുകയും ചെയ്ത സംഭാവനകളാൽ പ്രശസ്തരായ നീൽസ് ഹെൻറി കേബൽ, എവറിഷെ ഗലോവി, ശ്രീനിവാസ രാമാനുജൻ എന്നിവരെയൊക്കെ നാം ഈ ലെക്ചർ സീരീസിൽ പരിചയപ്പെടുകയുണ്ടായി. അവരുടെയൊക്കെ ഗണത്തിൽപ്പെടുത്താവുന്ന പ്രതിഭാധനനായ മറ്റൊരു ഗണിത ശാസ്ത്രജ്ഞനാണ് ഈ 2021 118 ജന്മവർഷം ആയിരിക്കുന്ന ഫ്രാങ്ക് രാംസെ. 27 വർഷം നീണ്ട ജീവിതത്തിൽ ഒരുപക്ഷെ ഐസക് ന്യൂട്ടനോ സോക്രട്ടീസിനോ ഒപ്പം നിർത്താവുന്ന പ്രതിഭ മഹാരഥനെന്ന് ലോകം വാഴ്ത്തിയ ഫ്രാങ്ക് രാംസെയുടെ പേരിലാണ് ഇന്നത്തെ ഈ ലെക്ചർ നടത്തുന്നത്. അനിതര സാധാരണമായ വായനാശീലവും കൂർമ്മബുദ്ധിയും കൈമുതലായ രാംസെ വളരെ ശാന്തനും മറ്റുള്ളവരുടെ ആദരവിനൊക്കെ പാത്രമാകുന്ന സ്വഭാവ ഗുണമുള്ളവരുമാണ്. ശാസ്ത്രവും സാമൂഹ്യ വിഷയങ്ങളും ഒരുപോലെ ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട രാംസെ തന്റെ ജീവിതകാലം മുഴുവൻ അറിവ് വർദ്ധിപ്പിക്കാനും അറിഞ്ഞവയെ പ്രചരിപ്പിക്കാനും ചെലവഴിച്ചു. 1903 ജനിച്ച അദ്ദേഹം 1923 പഠനം പൂർത്തിയാക്കിയ ശേഷം അതേ വർഷം തന്നെ കേംബ്രിഡ്ജ് യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ അധ്യാപകനായി പ്രവേശിക്കുകയും ചെയ്തു. ബർട്രൻഡ് റസലിന്റെ പ്രിൻസിപ്പിയ മാത്തമാറ്റിക്ക വളരെ ആഴത്തിൽ പഠന വിധേയനാക്കിയ രാംസെ അതിൽ നിന്നുള്ള ആശയങ്ങളെ കൂടുതൽ ജനകീയമാക്കുന്ന ഫൗണ്ടേഷൻസ് ഓഫ് മാത്തമാറ്റിക്സ് എന്ന പ്രബന്ധത്തിലൂടെയാണ് പ്രശസ്തനായത്. ഗണിത തത്വചിന്തയെ ആഴത്തിൽ പഠിക്കുകയും ഗണിതത്തിന്റെ സൗന്ദര്യാത്മക തലത്തെ കൂടുതൽ ജനകീയമാക്കുകയും ചെയ്ത ഒരു ഗണിതജ്ഞൻ എന്ന നിലയിലാണ് രാംസെ മാനിക്കപ്പെടുക. സംഭാവ്യതാ സിദ്ധാന്തം പ്രോബബിലിറ്റി തിയറിക്ക് ഗണിത തത്വശാസ്ത്ര ചിന്തയുടെ പിൻബലം കൊടുത്ത് അതിനെ കൂടുതൽ പ്രചരിപ്പിക്കാനും രാംസെയ്ക്ക് കഴിഞ്ഞു. രാംസെയുടെ മറ്റു മേഖലകളിലുള്ള സംഭാവനകളും നിസ്തുലമാണ്. അദ്ദേഹം ഒരു ഫിലോസഫർ എന്ന നിലയിലും മാത്തമാറ്റീഷ്യൻ എന്ന നിലയിലും എക്കണോമിസ്റ്റ് എന്ന നിലയിലും ഒക്കെ ധാരാളം സംഭാവനകൾ അറിവിന്റെ ലോകത്ത് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇതിൽ ഇദ്ദേഹത്തെ ഗണിത ലോകം എക്കാലവും ഓർമ്മിക്കുന്നത് രാംസെ തിയറി എന്ന ഒരു പുതിയ ശാസ്ത്രശാഖയുടെ ഗണിത ശാസ്ത്രശാഖയുടെ ഉപജ്ഞാതാവായിട്ടാണ്. ഒരു സ്ട്രക്ചറിന് അതിന്റെ സബ്സ്ട്രക്ചറിന് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു പ്രോപ്പർട്ടി, ഒരു കോമൺ പ്രോപ്പർട്ടി ഉണ്ടാവണമെങ്കിൽ ഈ സ്ട്രക്ചർ എത്രമാത്രം വലുതായിരിക്കണം എന്ന ഒരു പക്ഷെ ഒരു വശത്തുകൂടി നോക്കുമ്പോൾ തത്വചിന്താപരമായ ഒരു ചോദ്യമെന്ന് തോന്നാവുന്ന ഒരു തിയറിയിലൂടെയാണ് രാംസെ ഗണിത ലോകത്ത് പ്രശസ്തനാകുന്നത്. അതിനെ തുടർന്ന് രാംസെ തിയറി, അത് ഗ്രാഫ് തിയറിയിലും കോമ്പിനറ്റോറിക്സിലും ഇന്നിപ്പോ ജീവിതത്തിന്റെ ഒഴിച്ചുകൂടാനാവാത്ത ധാരാളം മേഖലകളിൽ ഇതിന്റെ ഒന്നല്ലെങ്കിൽ മറ്റൊരു തരത്തിൽ പ്രത്യക്ഷമായോ പരോക്ഷമായോ ഉള്ള ആപ്ലിക്കേഷൻസ് ഉള്ള ഒരു ഗണിതശാസ്ത്ര ശാഖയായി രാംസെ തിയറി വളർന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നു. രാംസെ ടൈപ്പ് പ്രോബ്ലംസ്, രാംസെ പസിൽസ് എന്നിങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ സാമൂഹിക മാനുഷിക കൂട്ടായ്മകളെയൊക്കെ ബന്ധിപ്പിക്കുന്ന തരത്തിൽ, ഒരു ഉദാഹരണം പറഞ്ഞാൽ 6 അതിൽ കൂടുതലോ ആളുകളുള്ള ഒരു ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ 3 പേര് ഏറ്റവും കുറഞ്ഞത് 3 പേരെങ്കിലും അന്യോന്യം അറിയുന്നവരായിരിക്കും എന്നൊക്കെയുള്ള കണ്ടുപിടുത്തങ്ങളും നിരീക്ഷണങ്ങളും അതിനെ ജനറലൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന മറ്റനേകം ഒബ്സർവേഷൻസും നടത്തുകയും ഞാൻ മുമ്പ് പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ ഗണിതത്തിന് തത്വചിന്താപരമായ ഒരു ദർശന മുഖം നൽകുകയും അതിന്റെ സൗന്ദര്യാത്മക തലത്തെ കൂടുതൽ പ്രകാശിപ്പിക്കുകയും ചെയ്ത ഒരു തിയറി ഡെവലപ്പ് ചെയ്ത ആളെന്ന നിലയിലാണ് രാംസെ അറിയപ്പെടുന്നത്. 27 വർഷം മാത്രം നീണ്ട ജീവിതത്തിൽ ഇന്നും ഗവേഷകർക്ക് പഠിക്കാനും അതിൽ നിന്ന് കൂടുതൽ മേഖലകളിലേക്ക് പടർന്നു കയറാനും സഹായിക്കുന്ന തരത്തിലുള്ള രാംസെ തിയറി, രാംസെ നമ്പേഴ്സ്, രാംസെ നമ്പറിന്റെ ജനറലൈസേഷൻ, ജനറലൈസ്ഡ് രാംസെ നമ്പേഴ്സ് എന്നിങ്ങനെ ജനറലൈസ്ഡ് രാംസെ നമ്പേഴ്സ് ടു ഗ്രാഫ് തിയറി, കോമ്പിനറ്റോറിക്സ് എന്നിങ്ങനെ പല ശാഖകളുടെ വളർച്ചയ്ക്കും പുതിയ കണ്ടുപിടുത്തങ്ങൾക്കും അദ്ദേഹം കാരണമായി. നമ്മുടെ ടൈൽ ടെക്നോളജി, ടെക്സ്റ്റൈൽ ടെക്നോളജി എന്നിവയിലൊക്കെ ഇന്നിപ്പോ നമ്മുടെ റിസോഴ്സ് പേഴ്സൺ പ്രതിപാദിക്കാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്ന തരത്തിലുള്ള ഇന്റർ കണക്ഷൻ നെറ്റ്വർക്ക് എന്നതിന്റെ ഒക്കെ ഒരു ആദ്യകാല രൂപമായി രാംസെ തിയറി നിലകൊള്ളും. ഞാൻ തുടക്കത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ ഈ ലോകത്തു നിന്ന് ഇല്ലാതായി പോയെങ്കിലും പിന്നെയും പ്രകാശിക്കുന്ന വിളക്ക് ആയി തുടരുന്ന ഇത്തരം ആളുകളെ ഇടിമിന്നൽ ഒളി പോലെ പൊലിഞ്ഞുപോയ ജീവിതം ആയിട്ടുകൂടെ എല്ലാ കാലവും ശാസ്ത്ര ലോകത്തിന് ഓർത്തിരിക്കാനുള്ള സംഭാവനകൾ, അതിൽ നിന്ന് കൂടുതൽ പഠിക്കാനുള്ള സംഭാവനകൾ നൽകിയ ഇത്തരം ഗണിതജ്ഞരെ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തുന്ന ഈ ഡോംസാറ്റ് ലെക്ചർ സീരീസിൽ ഇത്തവണ രാംസെയെ പരിചയപ്പെടുത്താനും അതേപോലെ ഈ ഗണിത മേഖലയിൽ പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന യുവ ഗണിതകാരന്മാരെ നിങ്ങളുടെ മുൻപാകെ പരിചയപ്പെടുത്താനും കിട്ടുന്ന ഈ അവസരത്തെ അങ്ങേയറ്റം മാനിക്കുന്നു. അതിൽ നിന്ന് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് പ്രയോജനങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാകട്ടെ എന്ന് ആശംസിക്കുന്നു. ഈ ലെക്ചർ സീരീസ് ഫ്രാങ്ക് രാംസെയ്ക്ക് സമർപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് പ്രഭാഷണം നടത്താനായി ഡോക്ടർ മഞ്ജു കെ മേനോനെ ക്ഷണിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. താങ്ക് യു.
Thank you, sir. Now, it's time to introduce today's resource person, Dr. Manju K. Menon, Assistant Professor, St. Paul's College, Kalamassery. She was an NBHM Research Fellow from 2002 to 2005 and completed her PhD in graph theory under the guidance of Professor A. Vijaykumar Kusat in 2010. She was the convener of the 2 UGC-sponsored national seminars and a combat course sponsored by Ramanujan Mathematical Society. She is a life member of RMS, IMS, and KMA. She is currently the Controller of Examinations of St. Paul's College, Kalamassery. With immense pleasure, I welcome you, ma'am, for the lecture on the topic Graphs and Interconnection Network.
മഞ്ജു ടീച്ചർ ഇപ്പൊ ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യും തോന്നുന്നു. ഇപ്പം അങ്ങ് ലെഫ്റ്റ് ആയി. ടീച്ചർ ഇപ്പൊ അവിടെ ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യും.
100 പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസ് ആയി, അതുകൊണ്ട് പ്രശ്നം ഉണ്ടാവുമോ?
ഇല്ല സാറേ, 96 അല്ലേ ആയി, 100ഓളം ആയല്ലേ? ഓക്കെ, നോക്കട്ടെ.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So shall I start the session?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I lost the net connection a couple of times. I don't know what happened actually. Thank you very much for your kind invitation for the DOMSAC lecture. It's a very good thing that you're conducting lecture series in each and every month in honor of some mathematicians. And today, in this month, it is it's my privilege actually to be part of that. So let me present my screen. I hope you can see my screen within a minute. Can you see my screen?
Yes, visible.
So, the talk is about graphs and interconnection networks. And let me remember our Ramsey. Indulal sir വളരെ ഭംഗിയായിട്ട് രാംസയെ കുറിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. എന്നാലും രാംസയെ കുറിച്ച് 2 വാക്ക്. Actually, problems in Ramsey theory typically ask a question of the form: how big must some substructure to be guaranteed that a particular property holds? That means a structure must be that much big so that its substructure will have some special properties. That is actually the main thing of Ramsey theory. That means starting some mathematical structure and then that is cut into small pieces. The question is, how big must the original structure in order to ensure that at least one of the pieces has a special property, that property that we will discuss in the next slide. In terms of graph theory, we can pose this as the problem. Consider a complete graph of order n. I assume that you know basics of graph theory. Complete graph means it's a complete graph of order n means it's a graph with n vertices in which any pair are adjacent. So Consider a complete graph of order n. Now color each edge either red or blue. Any two colors are used. How large must n be in order to ensure that there is either a blue triangle or a red triangle? That is actually the question. I mean, you can color the coloring is your choice. Either you can color red or you can color blue. Our question is, how many vertices must be there in the original graph Kn in such a way that it will definitely contain either a red triangle or a blue triangle? Is the question clear?
May I intervene? Can you please use an earphone, a headphone, something like that?
Sir, my voice is breaking.
Yeah, it's not clearly audible.
Okay, just a minute, sir. So can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay.
പ്രശ്നം എന്താണെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നമ്മളിങ്ങനെ ഈ ഇയർഫോൺ ഉപയോഗിക്കാത്തതുകൊണ്ട് ഇത് ഈ നമ്മുടെ കമ്പ്യൂട്ടർ ഡിവൈസിൽ നിന്ന് അടുത്തും അകന്നും പോകുമ്പോൾ ഈ ശബ്ദത്തിന് ഒരു വേരിയേഷൻ ഉണ്ട്. എന്റെ സിസ്റ്റത്തിന്റെ പ്രശ്നമാണെന്ന് എനിക്ക് അറിഞ്ഞൂടാ.
Okay. I don't know. Let me try my level best. Is my voice breaking?
Breaking ഒന്നുമില്ല, break ഇല്ല.
Okay. So I hope the question is clear. You have to consider a complete graph on n vertices and color each vertex either red or blue. The question is, how large n must be in order to ensure that there is either a blue triangle or a red triangle? So K1, no, we don't have to consider that because there won't be any triangle. Triangle means a K3. K2, again, we don't have to consider, they are trivial cases. So what about K3? In K3, if you are coloring like this, the coloring is definitely my choice. So this won't contain a red triangle or a blue triangle. The coloring is your choice. However you color, you have to get a red triangle or a blue triangle. That is the question. The coloring can be done in so many ways, but however you do, the guarantee is that there must be either a red triangle or a blue triangle. So in K3, it is definitely not possible because I have shown you. What about K4? In K4, you can color the edges either blue or red. The question is, will it definitely contain a red triangle or a blue triangle? That is a question. You can make a trial. You just color, just write blue or etc. like that. Will you get? Can you be sure that that will definitely contain a blue triangle or a red triangle? If I am coloring all the three edges with blue, yes, definitely I will get a blue triangle. But the question is different. However you color, you have to get a triangle, blue triangle or a red triangle. Or in other words, the question can be reposed like this. That means, is it necessary that in K4 we will get a red triangle or a blue triangle? That is exactly the question. Any answer or any comment? It is not possible as shown like this, because if I am coloring like this, it won't contain in a red triangle or a blue triangle. So K4 is not okay, or in other words, n cannot be 4 also. What about n is equal to 5? Or in other words, in K5, is it necessary that you will get a blue triangle or a red triangle. Any comments? Am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Audible. Yeah. So what about K5? In blue triangle, will it contain a blue triangle or a red triangle? Is it necessary that it will definitely contain a blue triangle or a red triangle, however you color? Answer is again no. I will show you the picture. See this one? If I am coloring like this, it won't contain any red triangle or a blue triangle. Or in other words, K3 is not enough. K4 is not enough. K5 is not enough. So what about K6? Answer is actually 6 is enough. If you're choosing 6 vertices, it will definitely contain a blue triangle or a red triangle, however you color the edges. That is the answer actually we are going to give. Now let us see the proof of that one, how we can prove that. So this is actually K6, that means 6 vertices are there in which any 2 vertices are adjacent, that is K6 actually, and have labeled the vertices as A, B, C, D, E, F. So from K, there are actually 5 edges. I'm coloring these 5 edges with either blue or red. 5 edges are there and 2 colors are there. So by pigeonhole principle, any 3 edges must have the same color. It can be either blue or red, I don't know. But without any loss of generality, I can take those edges to be blue in color because we have 5 edges with us and just 2 colors. So definitely 3 edges must get the same color. We are taking that same color to be blue. So AB, AC and AD, these 3 edges, that is our assumption. Any 3 edges have blue color. I am taking those 3 edges to be AB, AC and AD. Now the proof goes like this. If BC is of blue color, we will get a blue triangle. Am I right? Please give me the response, otherwise I may feel that, my connection has some issues and I am not audible. Please give me the response, my dear students. Indulal sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I can hear and I can see the screen, the PowerPoint presentation also.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
I can hear and I can see the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, sir. No issues. So, if BC is of blue color, we will get a blue triangle. If BD is of blue color, we will get a blue triangle. If CD is of blue color, we will again get a blue triangle. So what happens if all these 3 edges are not blue? Our question is whether we will get a blue triangle or a red triangle. If any of these 3 edges, BC, CD or BD was blue, we will definitely get a blue triangle. So what happens if all the 3 edges are not blue in color? Please tell me what will happen. BC is not blue, CD is not blue and BD is not blue. Then what will happen to that triangle? This is not blue means this is red in color. CD is not in blue means that is also red in color, and BD is not blue means that is also red in color. That means you will get this triangle BCDB as a red triangle. So you will definitely get a blue triangle or a red triangle for sure. That means for the Ramsey problem, what we have discussed here, R33, this stands for either K3, red K3 or a blue K3. That is this 3 and 3, answer is 6. 6 vertices are enough and more. Why we are saying that this problem is very difficult? Because here, since the number of vertices is just 6, we could show that 3 is not enough, 4 is not enough, 5 is not enough, and we could display a proof for 6. But whenever we are going to higher dimensions, That means whenever we are discussing about RMN, we may get an upper bound easily. For this structure, definitely this property holds, and hence that is okay. But it is not easy to show that for the numbers less than n, there does not exist such a triangle, or such a structure, such a Km or Kn complement, whatever it is. It is not easy to show that. That is the main difficulty of this Ramsey theory, and hence connecting to this Ramsey theory, there exist some Ramsey numbers. They are known as RMN. This numbers is defined like this. It is a minimum number of vertices V such that all undirected simple graphs of order V contain a complete graph of order M or an independent set of order N, either a Km or Kn complement. Ramsey number is the minimum number of vertices for a graph to have a Km or a Kn complement. That is the question. And Ramsey theorem states that such a number exists for all M and N. That is guaranteed. I would like to finish about this Ramsey by a comment about Ramsey numbers by this great mathematician. It is none other than Paul Erdős, who said that he asked us, Erdős, Paul Erdős, even though it's named as ERDOS, it is pronounced as Erdős according to my knowledge. So Paul Erdős asked us to imagine an alien force vastly more powerful than us landing on Earth and demanding the value of R55, or they will destroy our planet. That is their demand. In that case, he claims we should marshal all our computers and all our mathematicians and attempt to find the value. But if they are asking for us R66, somehow we have to destroy the aliens. But because it is that much difficult, we may not get the answer even if we are using that much computers and that much mathematicians' knowledge, or like that. That was Erdős commented about Ramsey theory. With this small note, let me get into my topic, that is graphs and interconnection networks. So what is an interconnection network actually? Your mobile connection, your mobile towers and your, all those having a geophone, or all those having a Vodafone connection, all those having an Airtel connection, or whatever it is, that is a network actually. Or All India Radio, the transmitter and your radio, your radios at home, that is definitely an interconnection network. From somewhere, some message is transmitted and you are receiving that message, that is an interconnection network. So, interconnection network, how it can be modeled as a graph? That's a question. An interconnection network means these many things are there. These will be considered as our vertices, and two things will be connected if some communication is being passed in between. That is the meaning. So, any interconnection network can be modeled using graphs, and hence the properties of the interconnection networks can be studied with the help of graph theory, using some graph theoretical parameters. So, whenever we are constructing an interconnection network, or whenever we are discussing an interconnection network, it must be hard to disrupt. Whatever happens, the communication must be passed from one thing to the other. Your local area network in your computer lab, that is definitely an interconnection network. But even if some computer has some issue or a virus or something, some problem is there, nothing must happen between the for the communication between the other computers. That must be guaranteed. Then only we can say that that network is a Pakka network, or in other words, the things are smoothly running out in that network. So we are going to discuss about some networks, some basic networks that are easier for you. Easy to understand: grid and torus, hypercube networks, and Hamming graphs. That is what we are going to discuss with. The first one is discussed about the Cartesian product of two graphs. If we have two graphs, G and H with us, how we can define the Cartesian product, G Cartesian H? The Cartesian product is defined like this. Whenever we are taking two graphs, G1 cross G2 is a graph with vertex at V of G1 cross V of G2, and edge set E of G1 cross E of G2, where E of G1 cross E of G2 is defined like this. Two vertices UV and XY are adjacent. Either U is equal to X and VY is an edge in G2, or UX is an edge in G1 and V is equal to Y. You may feel that the definition is a little bit tricky. No, it is actually a very simple definition. Let's see an example. P4 Cartesian P3. This is P4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and P3, 1, 2, 3. So whenever we are taking P4 Cartesian P3, what you have to do is, you have to take the copy of this graph this many times. There are 3 vertices, so you have to take this graph 3 copies and 3. Okay? And, or in other words, this one, P3 has to be taken 4 times because the other copy has 4 vertices. So you have to take P3 4 copies and join the corresponding vertices. That is the easiest way of taking the Cartesian product. But let me tell you, the definition is like this. How the vertices are V of G1 cross V of G2. That means 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 2, 5, 2, 6, 2, 7, 3, 5, 3, 6, 3, 7, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 7 are the vertices. 1, 5 and 2, 5 are adjacent because 1 is adjacent to 2. 5 is the vertex corresponding to this one. And 1, 5 is adjacent to 1, 6 because 1 is same and 5, 6 is adjacent here. So whenever you are taking the Cartesian product, you don't have to worry about the definition actually. You take one copy here and the other copy here. You take vertex set of H number of times. Those many copies have to be taken. That's all. Now, mesh or grid. It is a beautiful interconnection network that is widely used. Actually, there is nothing but the Cartesian product of 2 path graphs. That means PM Cartesian, PN is known as grid or mesh. As we have shown earlier, P4 Cartesian P3, this structure is a mesh because it looks like a mesh. In our ordinary language, this is nothing but a mesh. That's why this is called as a mesh graph. Now the next one is torus. Torus means cycle, Cartesian cycles. I'm going to show you an example like C4 Cartesian C3. Here it is C4. C4 is taken 3 times and C3 is taken. You can see this is one C3, this is another C3, this is another C3, and this is another C3. So C3 is taken 4 times, C4 is taken 3 times, and the corresponding vertices are made adjacent. That is nothing but C4 Cartesian C3. Is that okay?
Yes, miss.
Now the next one is Hamming graph. Hamming graph means Cartesian product of 2 complete graphs. The mesh was Cartesian product of 2 path graphs. The next one is Cartesian product of 2 cycles, that is called as torus. And the next one is Cartesian product of 2 complete graphs. That means some Km, Cartesian Kn. I didn't draw the picture, but you have to do, if you're taking say K3 Cartesian K5, you have to take K3 5 copies and K5 3 copies. Join the corresponding vertices. That is what you have to do actually. So that is nothing but the Hamming graph. That is also a beautiful interconnection network. It is a complicated interconnection network, I should say. The next one is the most widely taught or studied interconnection network, hypercube. So many types of cubes are there as interconnection network, and we are going to deal with the basic one, that is the hypercubes. Hypercube is defined like this. Q1 is just K2, as you can see. Q2 is this Cartesian product K2 actually. Q1 Cartesian product K2. That means Q1 is taken 2 times and the corresponding vertices are made adjacent. So the first cube is just K2, the second cube is just C4, and the third cube means what we have to do, as we have said, from Q1 to Q2, how we obtain that? Q1 is taken 2 copies, just join those vertices, corresponding vertices. So how I will get Q3 from Q2? You have to take Q2 2 copies and join the corresponding vertices. The yellow vertices is 1 copy and the green vertices is another copy, and the corresponding vertices are made adjacent. This is nothing but Q3. This looks like our ordinary cube. That is why this is called as cubes. I mean hypercube. The name came from this structure actually. Now, generally, the hypercube is defined as Qn is equal to Qn minus 1 Cartesian product K2. This is actually Cartesian product K2, where Q1 is equal to K2. So from this Q3, you can go to Q4. How you will get Q4? You have to take 2 copies of Q3 and make the corresponding vertices adjacent. From Q4, you can go to Q5. How you will get Q5? You take 2 copies of Q4 and make the corresponding vertices adjacent. This is the process that you have to repeat again and again to get Qn. Now, the same definition we can see in another manner. Let me explain that also. As you can see, the vertices are labeled as 0 and 1. It is a set of all permutations in 0 and 1. It is the only permutation 0, 1. That is why they are made adjacent, because they differ in one position. I will show you the definition. After that, I will come back to that. The vertex is the collection of all n tuples in which each term is either 0 or 1, and 2 vertices in Qn are adjacent if and only if the corresponding n tuples differ in exactly one coordinate. That's what we have done in the pictures. Here we are taking only the 1 tuples with 0 and 1. So just 0 and 1. They differ in one position, so they are made adjacent. In the second case, what we are doing, we have to take the 2 tuples of zeros and ones, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. That will be definitely the vertices. Why 0, 0 and 0, 1 are made adjacent? Because they differ only in the second position. But these are not adjacent. Why these are not adjacent? 0 is changed to 1 and this 0 is changed to 1. That means 2 differences are there. This is called a Hamming distance in graph theory actually. So these are not adjacent. Similarly, this is also not adjacent. All other vertices are made adjacent. Whenever you are taking Q3, you have to take 3 tuples of zeros and ones. That means 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, etc. up to 1, 1, 1 must be there. And they are joined if they differ only in one position. That means 0, 0, 0 is made adjacent to 0, 0, 1 because they differ only in the third position. 0, 0, 0 is made adjacent to 1, 0, 0 because they differ only in the first position. But 0, 0, 0 is not adjacent to 1, 0, 1 because they differ in the first position and in the third position. So they are not made adjacent. This is the definition of Q3. Similarly, you can go to Q4. What you have to do, you have to take all 4 tuples of zeros and ones and join using the definition. This is another definition of hypercube. It is very much interesting to study about the hypercube. And so much of literature survey. Let me come back to graph theory. You are basically degree final year students and first year MSc students, as far as I know. Some maybe they're outside Central Asia, but my dear students, please tell me, what is the diameter of the graph? I have shown you the the definition. Diameter of a graph is the maximum distance between any two vertices in a graph. That is the diameter. In this graph, what is the diameter? Please tell me the answer. A very simple structure. What is the diameter of this graph? Please give me the answer. What is the diameter of this graph? You have to find the maximum distance between any two vertices. That is the diameter of a graph actually. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, miss.
Yes. Okay. So what is the diameter of the graph? So I don't think I have to expect an answer, am I right? So I have to give the answer.
മാം ചാറ്റ് ബോക്സിൽ ടൈപ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് കുട്ടികൾ.
Oh, but I can't see that, ma'am. That's a problem. Because whenever I'm in this mode, I can't see the messages. Could you please unmute and say your answer?
Three.
Is it 3? How it is 3? From 1 to 2, 1, 2 to 4, 1. That means from 1 to 4, you can travel in 2 ways, two distance. 1 to 3, 1, 1 to 2, 1. 2 to 4, 1, 2 to 1, 1, 2 to 3, 1. 3 to 2, 1, 3 to 1, 1, 3 to 4, 1, 2. So what is the maximum distance? And from 4 also you have to count like that. The maximum distance is not 3, it is 2 actually, because this is the maximum distance you have to travel. So the diameter of this graph is 2. And what about the diameter of the grid or mesh we have seen earlier? We have drawn the same figure, P4 Cartesian P3. What is the diameter of this graph? You have to give me the maximum distance between any two vertices in a graph. Actually, the maximum distance will be between 1, 5 and 4, 7 or 1, 7 and 4, 5. Extreme ends and the vertices are maximum distance in our. So please give me what will be the diameter of this graph. The distance will be between 1, 5 and 4, 7. So you can travel in visible to you. This is a lengthy path. Otherwise, you can travel like this. Otherwise, you can travel like this between 1, 5 and 4, 7. It is nothing but what is the distance? As I'm not getting the answer, let me tell you, it is 5 because you can travel like this 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the distance between 1, 5 and 4, 7 is actually 5. Or in other words, whatever be the grid you are choosing, this is PM, this is PN. In PM, the distance is m minus 1. And in PN, the distance is n minus 1. So m minus 2, that will be the diameter in any grid or mesh. This is the maximum distance you have to travel. Now, another definition, connectivity. You have studied it in your S6 BSc Mathematics. And again, you are studying it in your S1 MSc Mathematics Graph Theory. If you have opted algorithmic graph theory, again, you are seeing this definition, connectivity. Connectivity or kappa is the minimum number of vertices in a graph whose deletion makes it a disconnected graph or a K1. That is a trivial case actually. This is defined as the connectivity of the graph. That means how many vertices we have to delete from the graph G so that we will get the original graph to be disconnected. Original graph was connected and it will get disconnected because of this deletion of vertices. The same graph, what is the connectivity of this graph? We want to have the minimum number of vertices. If you delete that number of vertices, that graph will become disconnected. That is our question. So what is the connectivity of this graph? If I am deleting 2, this vertex 2, we will get a disconnected graph because 4 will not be connected to 1 or 3. So if I am deleting just 2, you will get a disconnected graph, or in other words, connectivity is 1. So this is the connectivity of this graph. So we have seen the diameter of this graph and the connectivity of this graph. Now, why we are focusing on these two graph parameters whenever we are discussing about interconnection networks? As as we have already said, in an interconnection network, communication is the critical issue. You have to transfer the data from one thing to the other thing. So communication must be possible whatever happens inside the structure. So if the diameter is less, we can pass the data within the minimum amount of time or the minimum amount of transfer. So a good communication network prefers a smaller diameter. And regarding the connectivity, connectivity means what? The graph will become disconnected if you're deleting those vertices. So if connectivity is high means that many processors are required. I mean, they have to be attacked if you have to fail the system. So for a good communication network, smaller diameter and a higher connectivity is preferred. I hope the idea is clear. A smaller diameter and a higher connectivity is preferred for a good communication network. Same thing here also. Diameter is actually the maximum delay in our message. Connectivity means that much stronger is our interconnection network. Now, let me tell you an interesting problem that is called as transmitting problem. This was actually developed by the Intel company. You all are familiar with Intel. So this was not at all a basic mathematical problem. This was a problem posed by the computer engineers, and later it came to graph theory, that's all. This transmitting problem is like this. I will cover all this. I will tell you an example. Whenever you are dealing with the transmitting problem, this is your original graph C6, the green colored vertices 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There will be a host vertex outside the graph. This is not a part of the graph. This is an outside vertex. From B, we are going to pass a message to any of the vertex. And actually, we want to get that data to be transferred to all other vertices of the graph within the minimum number of time. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, Miss.
So, this is our original graph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a host vertex B is there as the blue colored vertex. From B, we will pass a message to any of the vertices and transferring it to 1 so that 1 got the data. That's why 1 is colored as blue. In the next point of time, this data will be transferred to 2 and 3 by 1 automatically. So, if you are transferring the same data to 4 at the second time, 1 will transfer the data to 2 and 6. At the same time, we will transfer the data to 4. So 4 also got blue color in the second one. Now, in the third point of time or third unit of time, this data will be automatically transferred from 4 or from 2 to 3 or from 6 to 5. Anyway, it's like that. This is the transmitting problem. I will come back to the definition of transmitting problem. This is how the problem is defined. G is the topology of a network. Network topology means the corresponding graph of the interconnection network. And B is a special vertex which is called as a host processor. This is connected to each vertex of G. This can transfer the data to any vertex of the graph. The host processor is the sender of the message and it has to transmit to all vertices. At each time unit, the host may send its message to any single vertex of the graph according to its choice. At the same time, each processor that has already received the message can send the message to all of its neighbors in 1 unit of time. The objective is to minimize the number of time units such that all the vertices in G can receive the message. The minimum number of time units for G is the optimal transmitting time for G. We want to do this process in the minimum unit of time. That means in the small graphs, say C6, the transmitting time is actually 3. We have seen that the transmitting time is 3. But whenever we are discussing about the transmitting problem, The workload of the host is also very important. What we have seen here, V has transferred data to 1 at the first unit of time. At the second unit of time, V has transferred the data to 4. So the workload of V is actually 2 in this case. And all the vertices got the message within 3 units of time. So transmitting time was 3, workload of the host vertex was 2 in our example. Actually, we want to minimize both these. That is the transmitting problem actually. In the transmitting scheme, each processor in G receives a message either from the host or from its neighbor within T time units, while the workload of the host is S. Whenever we are seeing that this is TS transmitting scheme is possible, within T units, all the vertices will get the message, and S is the working load of the host vertex. So we want to minimize both T and S in a transmitting problem. So if C of F is equal to T1S1 and C of G is equal to T2S2 are two transmitting schemes of the same graph. For the same graph, first I have transferred the data to V1 and then to V4. You can have a different transmitting scheme. We want to minimize minimize both the workload of the host and the transmitting time. That's all. So I think this is the best possible choice. 3 is the working time and 2 is the host work. So we want to minimize both T and S. Whenever we say that C of F is less than C of G, whenever T1 is less than T2, or if T1 is equal to T2, S1 must be less than or equal to S2. This is actually the transmitting scheme for graphs. Actually, it was developed by the Intel company, as I have already said, and some research is being done in this part. Higher research is going on in this area. Now, in any graph, as we know, if you're choosing a diameter of G plus 1, 1 scheme, what we mean by that? We are choosing the time to be diameter of G plus 1, and this is the workload of the host. That means the host transfers the data to any of the vertices and just waits. It is not transmitting data to any other vertex. Definitely within diameter of G plus 1 time, the whole vertices will get the same data. That is for sure, because diameter of G is the maximum communication delay as we have seen. So diameter of G plus 1 means that plus 1 is from the host to the first vertex. That's all. So diameter of G plus 1, 1 transmitting scheme is possible in any graph. We want to minimize that. That's all. So this is a good study in the hypercubes that has done on 1992. T of Qn is actually n by 2 plus 1. The proof is actually very simple. What is doing is the host vertex will pass the message to any arbitrary vertex. I will show you this. This is our hypercube. I have shown Q3 only. From the host vertex, it will transfer the data to 0, 0, 0. And then in the second unit of time, it will transfer the data to 1, 1, 1. At the same time, 0, 0, 0 will transfer the data to all its neighbors. So at the second point of time, these many vertices are blue. And at the third point of time, all the vertices will get blue color. So this is the procedure that we are doing. That means the host vertex will pass the message to any arbitrary vertex and then to that vertex at the maximum distance from that graph. And the host just waits. Host has the working load just 2 and the time will be n by 2 plus 1. This is a transmitting scheme. And I will show you the main reference. If you want to do some project for the degree students or the final year PG students, this is interconnection network and the transmitting scheme are two good areas that I could suggest. And thank you very much. And thank you very much, dear Indulal sir, for your kind invitation to Central Aloysius Edathwa. Thank you very much, dear colleagues from Central Aloysius Edathwa. Let me stop here.
Thank you, ma'am, for the informative class. It's the time for discussion session. Participants are requested to either unmute the audio or type in the chat box their questions.
Students, if you have any doubt, you can ask questions. Ma'am, I think there are no questions.
I hope there is no
So I
question.
think I can.
Thank you, ma'am, and dear participants. Now, I welcome Ms. Disha Margaret Alexander of 3rd BSc Mathematics for the vote of thanks.
Good morning, one and all. As we all know, the corona pandemic is still in its peak, and we all have to rely on online education. And our department has used this opportunity for further development in our education. As part of that, we have reached to the end of the 5th lecture of DOMSAC International Lecture Series. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar on graphs and interconnection network. At the outset, I thank K. Menon, Assistant Professor, St. Paul's College, Kalamassery, who showed apparent interest in giving us an excellent lecture on graphs and interconnection network. Thank you, ma'am, for taking out time from your busy schedule and enlightening us with knowledge. Next, I would like to thank the Vice Principal and HOD of Department of Mathematics, Professor Kochutresiyama Joseph, for giving us such an opportunity. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to thank Dr. Indulal G, Associate Professor of our department, who has given a brief summary about famous mathematician Frank Ramsey. Thank you, sir. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling weeks ago. It requires planning and a bird's eye for details. So I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the hands behind this successful program, the coordinator and assistant professor of the department, Ms. Dina Siskaria. It's her efforts that made this lecture series to its perfection. A special thanks to all the teachers, students, and all the others who had taken good interest to attend this webinar and made this a great success. Once again, I thank everyone for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Disha. Today's program has come to an end. Now, let us all rise up for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे